Hi, in Leon Morris's Jesus is the Christ studies in the Theology of John. We're in the I am sayings. Now we're up to I am the light of the world. Light is one of the great concepts of this gospel. John tells us that Jesus said, I am the light of the world, 8:12. On another occasion, he said, I am the light of the world, that's 9:5, which is identical with the former saying, except that it does not have the emphatic form. It conveys much the same idea, though not quite as forcefully as the first example. And he gets that across in the sentences here by having I am in capital letters in 8:12, but not in 9:5, so it's a subtlety of the Greek. On another occasion, Jesus said, I have come a light into the world. That's 12:46. This passage has the emphatic ego, though without a me. That is the verb. It is a solemn and significant statement. Light is one of the great topics of this gospel, for John uses the term phos, or phos, that's P-H-O-S in English transliteration, 23 times, more than twice as often as the term occurs in any other New Testament books. Next, by the way, is the book of Acts with 10. Light is a natural figure of speech for what is good and upright, and it is often found in contrast with darkness, equally natural as a symbol of evil. John makes this contrast from time to time, for instance in 3:19. It is significant that he uses such a powerful figure of speech, and one which means so much to him as a way of bringing out important truths with respect to Jesus and his mission. John does not tell us exactly when Jesus spoke these words, but he does say that they were spoken in the treasury as he was teaching in the temple. That's 8:20. Since Jesus was in Jerusalem at the Feast of Tabernacles for the events of chapter 7, it is a reasonable inference that that feast is the background to the light of the world saying, especially as the illumination from the great candelabra was an important feature of the celebration. It is pointed out that if Jesus spoke just after the feast, when the illumination no longer took place, the contrast between the light of the world and the darkness of Jerusalem would have been impressive. Another view is that the saying may contain a reference to the light given by the pillar of fire during the Exodus period. If either of these possibilities was in mind, the saying would have an interesting background. But it is scarcely necessary to look for anything of the kind. After all, the light of the world is a striking expression and conveys a very full meaning whenever it is spoken. Then he has a reference from Donald Guthrie, another famous New Testament scholar, who says, a statement like, I am the light of the world, makes no sense except on the lips of one who was agent in the creation of the world. That's from Guthrie's New Testament Theology. And Morris says, and in comparison to the creation of the world, matters like the candelabra in Jerusalem and the pillar of fire in the wilderness pale into insignificance. So Morris goes on, the note of universality emerges as early as the prologue. There we find that life was in the Word, that is capital W word, and the life was the light of men. This does not use the light of the world terminology, but it conveys much the same meaning. All the light that men have all the light that men have comes from the life that is in the Word. The usage with light corresponds to John's teaching in other language that Christ is the significant figure in whom alone is there hope for all the human race. He is aware that people do not always welcome the light of the world as they should. There are people who love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. That's John 3:19. There are evildoers who hate the light and do not come to it. 3:20. By contrast, the person who does the truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they have been wrought in God. 3:21. The idea that the way people react to the light is important comes out elsewhere. There's an interesting passage in the story of the raising of Lazarus. Jesus speaks of the importance of walking in the day, and goes on, if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. That's 11, 9, and 10. We would have expected, because he's not walking in the light, but The reference to the light not being in him shows that we have moved from physical illumination to spiritual truth. Jesus is telling his hearers that those who reject him, who do not take him into their lives, are in grave danger. There will be something of the same thought when he later tells the crowd that the light is among them only for a short time. That's 12:35. Surely a reference to his imminent death. He also calls on the people to believe in the light in order that they may become sons of light. 12:36. The demand for faith shows that it is not a question of physical illumination. Jesus is calling for faith in himself, and in his use of light points to the illumination of life that he brings. The speedy withdrawal of the light points to the truth that Jesus' saving death is not far away. The explicit phrase, the light of the world, does not occur in these passages, but it is surely implicit. In each of them, the thought is that Jesus is the only light, and that people must respond to the coming of the light by giving him a welcome and believing in him. Apart from that, they are lost eternally. That Jesus is the light of this whole world, and that people's eternal destiny depends on their reaction to him, tells us something very important about Jesus. Put in a link to Isaiah chapter 6, and it's linked to John 12. These constant references to light in chapter 12 of John can be linked very easily to a quote that John gives us embedded in John chapter 12, which is to Isaiah chapter 6. Who is the light of the world according to John, and whom did men see when they saw Jesus? He refers us to Isaiah 6, and Isaiah 6, of course, is the famous calling of Isaiah, where in vision, while in the temple, Isaiah sees the glory of Yahweh. See you next time.